All right, let's continue our discussion about the quotation of exchange rates. Okay, in the previous video, we used the U.S. dollars and Japanese yen as an example, right? We said that the rate between the two currencies is 128 Japanese yen per dollar, right? Oftentimes we would hear people, by just looking at that rate, would say that, wow, US dollar is so strong and the Japanese yen is so weak. When you ask them why, they will tell you that, see, one US dollar can exchange 128 Japanese yen, right? So that simply means the dollar is worth more or way more than a Japanese yen. Well, actually, when we talk about how strong or weak a currency is, it's not really, depends upon the rate, the ratio itself. Okay, and because the rate depends upon many other factors and can be changed overnight, okay? Especially the monetary policy. Okay, and so here let's talk about two very important concepts: appreciation and depreciation. Okay, and if we want to have a solid understanding about how strong or weak a currency is, we have to understand these two concepts in the first place. Okay, now appreciation means an increase in the value of a currency relative to another currency. Okay, again, here's a quick example. Suppose last year the rate between USD and JPY is $1 is equivalent of 120 yens. Okay, and this year the rate becomes 128 yens per dollar. In other words, 8 more yens per dollar. So this means the US dollar appreciates, or we could say dollar becomes strong. Okay, and vice versa. In this example, Japanese yen depreciates. Okay, because we need more yens to exchange $1, and so you could also say yen becomes weak. Okay. Now, similarly, depreciation means a decrease in the value of the currency relative to another currency. And let's say if last year the rate used to be 130 yen per dollar, and this year it becomes 128 yen per dollar, we would say USD depreciates. In other words, dollar becomes weak. Okay, because each dollar would be able to exchange fewer units of yens this year compared to last year, right? And vice versa, we could say the Japanese yen appreciates or becomes strong. Okay. All right. So here, the point we want to get across is when we talk about the strong or weak, we actually refers to the change in the rate, not the rate itself. Okay. In other words, if 1 unit of a currency can exchange 50 units of another currency or 150 units of another currency, it doesn't mean that the former is stronger than the later. Okay, so when we say strong or weak, we're actually comparing this currency with itself. Okay, probably in the past. Okay, we're trying to figure out the trend. Of course, when we look at the trend of the rate, it involves other currencies. Okay, but again, the ultimate goal here is to look at the purchasing power of this currency with itself in history, okay, or in the past. Now, here I would like to raise a question for you guys to think about. Was the US dollar strong or weak in the past 2 years? Okay. Now you would find the same question raised in the worksheet. So please go ahead and do this, okay, and bring your thoughts to our class. Okay. Now the clue I can give you guys is no matter you're gonna say the USD becomes strong or weak against what currency, right? You have to specify that. Okay, you have to pick another currency to be able to look at the exchange rate between the USD and the currency you picked, and then figure out the trend, right? Again, check out the worksheet and bring your thoughts to class. Okay. Now, if one would like to know, the US dollar is strong or weak against all other currencies in the world, or at least the major currencies in the world, because you just want to get a ballpark, estimation about, how strong or weak the US dollar has been, for example, since the pandemic, okay, or in the past 2 years. Now, how could we do that? Is there a possible way for us to get kind of the composite rate, right, or composite index? Yes, we do have a very popular rate. It's called the multilateral exchange rate or the effective exchange rate. Okay. Now, sometimes it's also called the trade-weighted exchange rate. Okay. So it has different names. I think among them, the effective exchange rate is the most popular one. Okay. Now, how we define this one? We aggregate the bilateral exchange rates using trade weights to construct an average over each currency in the basket. In other words, we first of all pick a basket of currencies, okay, and then we look at the exchange rate between the US dollar and each of these currencies in the basket. Okay, we get their bilateral exchange rate, and then we're gonna find the weighted average among all currencies. Now, the weight is gonna be the trade volume. Okay. Now here, let's take a look at this very simple hypothetical example. Okay. Suppose that 40% of the US trade is with country 1 and 60% is with country 2. Now, the home currency appreciates 10%. So here, the home currency means USD, okay, against the currency 1 of the country 1, but depreciates 30% against currency 2 of country 2. In other words, when we look at the bilateral exchange rates, they are moving towards the opposite directions, right? We're going to find a hard time to, draw the conclusion that the dollar becomes strong or weak, right? But the effective exchange rate will give us the answer here, okay? So what we need to do again is to, find the, to multiply the each exchange rate change, okay, by the trade share. So the trade share means the trade volume between the pair of economies divided by the total trade of the home economy or home country. Okay, in this case, it would be the U.S. total trade. Okay, so here what we do is remember that the home currency USD appreciates 10%, so we add a minus sign in front of it. Okay, just to show that it's going to be different from the second number we're going to use. Okay, they're moving towards different directions. If you want, you can also use plus 10% and minus 30% here. Okay, all right, so it's minus 10% multiplied by 40%, which is how much US trade with country 1, okay, compared to its overall trade, right, with the rest of the world, and plus 30%, that's the depreciation of the USD against the second currency. times 60%. So that's how much U.S. trade with the country 2 relative to the U.S. overall trade, right? The total trade. And then you do the calculation, you would be able to find that it's positive 14%. Remember, in this example, positive means depreciation. So we could say that the USD effective exchange rate has depreciated by 14% against the two currencies here. Okay. And of course, if you want to go more than 2, then it should be quite easy, right? Now here, let's take a look at some real world data. Okay. Now here you see 2 different curves, and the the red one is the nominal effective exchange rate of the U.S. dollars against major currencies. So there are 7 currencies in the basket that Federal Reserve picks. Okay, and the 7 currencies include Euro, Japanese yen, British pound, Canadian dollars, Australian dollars, Swiss franc, and Swedish krona. Okay, 7 of them. Sometimes these 7 currencies plus USD, US dollars, are called the 8 major currencies in the world. Okay. All right, and the blue one is the nominal effective exchange rate of the US dollar against 26 currencies. So this includes more currencies like Chinese yuan and Indian rupee, I believe, some other currencies. Okay. Now here we what we show here is actually an index. So the January 2002, that rate was 100, and then all the other rates here would divide it by that number, and so that we would be able to see the change over time, right? And you would find that here when the number or the curve is heading down, that means the foreign currency appreciates and dollar depreciates. Vice versa, if the curve is heading up, then the foreign currency depreciates and dollar appreciates. Okay, so as you can see that, from 2002 all the way to 2008, so that's the long economic expansion before the 07-08 financial crisis. We find that the dollar depreciated. Okay, overall, no matter which one you're looking at. Okay, and then we see the dollar rebounded. Okay, become appreciated during or after the global financial crisis in 2007-2008. Okay, and then depreciate again. Okay, probably because of the quantitative easing of the Federal Reserve. Okay, and after that, the USA experienced a decade-long expansion, and that's the longest economic expansion after World War II. And we find that dollar became stronger over that period of time. Okay, now overall, we find that if we look at the effective rate against 26 currencies, in 2019, the dollar has already become stronger than 2002, right? The beginning point of this period. But when we look at, the effective rate against the 7 currencies, the dollar is actually weaker or much weaker, okay, than that in 2002, all right? Again, here we would like to raise the same question. Was the US dollar strong or weak in the past 2 years? Because, you probably noticed that this chart shows you from 2002 all the way just to 2019. Okay, but we would like you guys to, take advantage of the Fred chart and in trying to figure out the US dollars, how strong or weak in the past 2 years. Okay.